So academic readiness really is about, it's more than just can they sit in exams? Are they ready for exams? It's really about helping our children to think clearly, oh dear, to help them think clearly, and equipping them to communicate wisely, steward responsibly, and faithfully, and be able to uptake responsibility at an increased level with more and more independence, and above all, to grow in confidence as young people made in the image of God. And all of that is actually an act of worship. It's an act of worship on the parents' part in the training and the discipleship along the way. And it is an act of worship for the student as they are growing in all these areas and so many others through these teen years, early teen years and upper teen years.
There is.
Yeah, it's a little
I've
slow
done
on the
too
uptake,
many.
so
Wait a minute, I've done
whoops.
too many.
Yep, there we go. So before we get started, I want to do just a quick 2-minute devotional on learning as worship. Our theme this year for Coffee and Chat has been and is education as discipleship. And so with that comes this learning as an act of worship. And so let's just take a look at a couple of scriptures here. There's two that draw on the concept really clearly. Let everything be done to the glory of God. So 1 Corinthians 10:31, the latter part of that verse says, whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And Colossians 3:17 echoes the same thing. It says, whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So those are great verses to capture and hold on to. There's also some really good um, scripture references of stories within the New Testament and all over scripture, not just the New Testament, but certainly in the Old Testament as well. I've just pulled out three that I thought of real quickly where their actions were an act of worship. So and in unique situations. So Paul and Silas, when they were singing in prison, and that's in Acts there, you see that. And those are in circumstances that are difficult. It was still an act of worship. The woman with the alabaster box, when she presents that, that is one of those situations where it's an act of worship based on humility and honor in the giving. And that one also kind of ties into the widow's mite, the honor and the giving, but also just being mindful and remembering that even the smallest act of worship is noticed. And so when we apply those ideas to our home education journey, our day-to-day comings and goings and learning and what we have in our routines and that kind of thing, those same principles still apply. There's going to be difficult circumstances. There's going to be strengths and weaknesses that we need to on places where we need to have humility about our strengths, and then also places and give honor where honor is due when we are looking at the gifts that we give as an offering. And I'm thinking the picture that comes to my mind is things like when our kids do a great job with like a culminating project, a presentation, an essay, and that kind of thing, no matter where they started, in humility and honor, giving them um, honor and humility where it's due and that type of thing. And then when our kids are struggling, that smallest act of stepping up and stepping forward is an act of worship, and that we honor and celebrate those. And there's so many more throughout Scripture, but I just wanted to take a moment to just help us see pictures in Scripture where we can see um, different ways that learning can be an act of worship. All right, Emma. Thank you. So moving into the practical readiness pieces, when we move into the secondary level, these years, the academic demands are different. We're going to look specifically at maths and English because those are the foundational courses that when these are solid, they are excellent building blocks for other subjects, for your sciences, your histories, your creative arts, your foreign languages, all these other kind of pieces. There's also this element of practical readiness when it comes to executive function skills. And those are things like organization, attention, perseverance, planning, independent learning, and those types of things. And you'll see those pop up as we talk, but we are not going to talk specifically so much about executive function skills. Although, as we go through the little checklists and the different things, you'll see where some of those keywords are going to pop up. So let's go ahead and get into it. What do we have next? So, oh yeah, we need to let everybody take a minute to get the readiness checklist. Emma, if you're able to drop it into the chat, that would be awesome, the PDF, or you can use the QR code there. And I think that may take you to the sign up page, or it might take you to the actual PDF. I forget how I put it together. Either way there. So we'll get the checklist there for you. And you can use that later. You can peruse through it, I suppose, too, as we're going. But what we want to do is be able to look through the items of the checklist. Do you need me to drop it into chat?
Yeah, drop it into chat.
Okay, I've got it right here.
I've realized I've not got it into. Sorry about that.
That's all right. There you go. All right, there it is coming for everybody. It should be there in just a second. So the practical readiness checklist is basically going to help you identify the strengths, the gaps, and the next steps that you want to identify for English and maths specifically. And what that does, it allows us to support our teens and our preteens with wisdom, intention, and encouragement. We'll be able to identify the places where they've done a really great job and their skills are solid, and then other places where there might be gaps or even some places where we really need to come alongside and reinforce some things that maybe they've missed or they're just really struggling to grasp. All right.
Oops, there.
All right. So Emma, you're going to go ahead and get us going with the
Yeah.
lower secondary maths first, yeah?
Yes, I let me just get this over here. Okay. So lower secondary maths in the UK is the in the UK it's called KS3 maths. I think more in England, so for Scottish parents that might not be as familiar term as English families or Welsh families. In the in Scotland that's S1. In England it's S1, sorry. Um Scotland S1, England Year 7 maths is what we're kind of looking at, or P7 in Scotland as well, because in Scotland we have a year more of primary school and than in England. So in P7 in Scotland, in England, those kids are still already gone up into high school. So that kind of basic age of 11, 12 is roughly where it lands. And obviously for home educators, it's so usual for our home educating kids to either be ahead or a little bit, sometimes a little bit behind, depending on the strengths or weaknesses of that individual child. Um, so what we're looking for is at that age, we're kind of looking to that trajectory into towards those high school years, and we're already thinking there's exams coming up at some point. Are we ready to jump into that work? And so we've looked at the key skills that that child, that 11, 12-year-old child should be kind of hitting in order to be going into that year 7 KS3 level of work. Um, Okay, so we're going to be looking at really practical ideas in this session, like really looking at these are the skills that we need to be looking at or your child needs to be familiar with. It's not that they need to be absolutely acing it all, but these are the things that as they're going into kind of P7, S1 or year 7, they need to be familiar with these terms. If you were to speak to them about them, go through a little lesson, it would be something, oh yeah, I feel I'm familiar with this. I'm comfortable with this. It's not like a complete new concept. Um, these are the foundational pieces to be launching into these secondary level maths. So when it comes to numeracy skills, basic maths, kind of just fluency, understanding the language of maths, things like place value from ones, or some people call it units, depending on the curriculum you've used, right up to billions, including like thousands, hundred thousands, tens of thousands, hundred thousands, millions, all the way up to the billions. And on the decimal place value, the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and being comfortable with jumping up and down the place values. Rounding decimal numbers comes out of that as well. Being able to multiply large numbers using formal written methods. So this is like big long multiplication, like say having a 3 or 4 digit number and multiplying that by like a 2 digit number. And similarly, the division version of that as well. And the reason for this is that just that really being able to or comfortable with or know the process for doing for working with things with the arithmetic of it and the number and understanding how that works. Write and interpret numerical expressions correctly. So being able to read big numbers correctly, understanding the numbers of the different digits and how those work. Fractions, decimals, and percentages. Now, this is something that I feel that is a concept that can cause an awful lot of trouble. When you've got a child in primary school and they hit the fractions, fractions seem to throw so many children. I think it's one of the first places that maths becomes a bit more abstract um, than they can understand um, adding, subtracting, even multiplying, division, multiplying groups of numbers or dividing them. But then when we add a fraction in, they can understand maybe cutting a circle into pies or something for a fraction. But when you turn that fraction now into numbers, that concept is a little bit more abstract and can cause some problems. And when I've tutored we're talking about this transition to secondary, but when you look at children at iGCSE level, if they've not got their fractions kind of solid, it causes an awful lot of problems. Even beyond that, even kids who are really good at maths, and then they get to A level and higher maths levels, if some kids are still shaky on the basics of fractions and it shows at those higher levels.
Yeah.
So when we're doing maths with our younger children, when we're at that kind of upper primary, lower secondary age, that we need to be really working on our fractions, being able to add and subtract, multiply and divide, doing word problems with fractions, being able to flip between fractions, decimals, and percentages, and doing those conversions, and having that lots of practice in these areas so that they're 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 quite firm on them. What you'll find as you get into the KS3 maths, these concepts are repeated. It's that kind of cyclical. We come back round to them every year, going a little bit deeper, a little bit more complicated. But if it's not there at the beginning, this is where cracks can open up and become quite wide and cause problems later on. Measurement, data, and geometry. So I think for home ed children in particular, where a lot of us have used American maths curriculum, and in the American maths curriculum, when it comes to measurement, they'll be using feet and inches. And then if you're transitioning to a UK based curriculum, you're now using the metric system. So that's a place just to be aware of, that there might be some trouble or some issues there if you're jumped between UK and American curriculum, that being able to be comfortable with the metric units is important, particularly at going to high school and GCSE, because it will be metric. And that's important for science as well, because when we, not just with the maths, but you're going to the sciences, it's all going to be in metric. um, Being able to work with time-based problems, being comfortable how to work with time, because time is not metric, as we all are aware. An hour is 60 minutes, and this could be, and again, it's a problem. This can be a problem that I see repeatedly with teenagers. When they're having to do calculations involving time, they don't know what to do with the minutes and how to put the minutes into a calculation, because the minutes don't represent a decimal value. Being able to read and create graphs and charts. Again, a lot of these skills as well, they come into your sciences as well. So being firm with them in their maths will help them better with science too. Be understand volume of cuboids using the kind of equations. Volume is length times width times height. Being able to plot coordinates and work out the area and perimeter of compound shapes. So that would be squares and rectangles put together to make a compound shape, but also having triangles as well. So area of triangles would be another one to be familiar with. So the half the base times the height at this stage. Um, okay. Children, as I've mentioned, a lot of this is cyclical. Our children develop at different rates. So this idea of readiness is much more than just the age alone. It's about consistent practice, confidence building, and that steady progress. So building on those foundations. And this is partly why we've created this checklist. So if you've downloaded clicked on the QR code, you'll see that we all these different big headings we've broken down into smaller little, just a 3 or 4 practice questions each, which you can use and present to your child. To, are you comfortable with this? Can you do this? How does this, do you understand this concept? Is it completely new to you? And it just gives you a short snapshot of where they are at. It's not about pressure, and it's not an exam. It's a tool for you as the parent to assess where are things firm, where are they shaky, where do we need to work, where are the cracks. And we would encourage you to prayerfully assess this with your child. Where are they doing well? Where do they need a little bit of work? And that'll help you decide on the next steps for them and to help you formulate that plan for moving forward. It's our privilege to be guiding our children and helping them to build these academic skills, but it takes perseverance and that responsibility to help them grow in confidence. And we also recognise that at this stage, for a lot of parents whose maths journey hasn't been good when they were at school, this is where things can become more challenging. And that's what we want to be able to partner with you and help you in this process with your child to build that strong foundation in maths. Okay, so this is, we've talked about the transition from kind of primary to high school maths. Now we're going to look at kind of upper secondary or more middle secondary, that transition towards iGCSE, which is known as KS4 in in kind of the English curriculum um names that they give things. Year 10 maths in England, S3 maths in Scotland. So this is where all these skills that we've talked about are really sure. And how do we know if our children are ready to step into iGCSE maths? And we want them, and so we're going to be looking, what do we need to look for? What do we need to be looking at to see, are they ready for this jump? Because the jump, it is quite a jump. There's deeper mathematical reasoning, there's much more problem solving, and it requires more independent. learning. Um, okay, so one of the big core skills at this age, excuse me, sorry about that. Um, so one of the big core skills is algebra and number skills. So again, this is one of these bits that a lot of parents who don't have that maths foundation start to feel quite they lack the confidence. It starts to make them feel worried. And a lot of teens who don't like maths also start to feel really concerned because algebra is it can trigger a lot of maths anxiety in our teens. So with algebra and the basic number skills, still these number skills, these numeracy skills. So one of the key foundational parts that is covered in iGCSE maths is one of the key skills which is regarded as like kind of your easy maths when you look at the iGCSE exam is your ratio, proportion, percentages, also ratio and fractions again that we've discussed previously. So these are things that teens need to be confident in working with before jumping into iGCSE. Solving simple linear equations and inequalities. So very simple things. And again, in the readiness assessment, we've got some examples of these. Not big complex equations, just really simple linear equations and inequalities at that beginning stage to show that they're ready to kind of build on that and face more challenging linear equations. Being able to rearrange simple formulae to change the subject of that formulae. And as I said, to work fluently with fractions, decimals, and percentages. So being able to do more complicated word problems, being really confident with working with equivalent fractions, mixed numbers, improper fractions, how to shift between mixed numbers to improper fractions, how to change a fraction into equivalent fraction, and these skills so that you can then take those core skills and apply them in more difficult problems. Um, geometry and mathematical reasoning. So again, working with area and perimeter of compound shapes, but now the compound shapes are more complicated than what they were a few years ago. Being able to expand and factorize basic algebraic expressions, and as an example of one here. So if so this is a good example. X plus 3 in brackets multiplied by x plus 2 in brackets, and then you've got this quadratic x squared plus 5x. That should be plus 6. I missed that typo. That should be something that if your child thinks, I don't know how to do this, I'm not sure about this, this is something that I'm a bit, this would be a hard algebraic concept for somebody just starting in year 9, in year 10, or ending year 9 in their maths. If this would be the top end piece of algebra that they would do. So if they're not absolutely confident in this, that wouldn't necessarily mean they aren't ready for iGCSE. But this would be where they're going. But this would be introduced just as they're ending year 9 maths. Being confident with coordinate geometry. So again, this idea of the coordinate grid and the spaces within it, being able to plot shapes in it, and just be much more happy with the four quadrants and positive and negative numbers. Um, Signs of more preparation needed would be avoiding multi-step problems, difficulty applying math skills to unfamiliar questions, having weak confidence in algebra. So if they really haven't seen anything with letters being introduced to them, then they probably aren't ready for iGCSE maths, and struggling to explain mathematical thinking clearly. Okay, again, a little bit of encouragement. Again, preparation for upper secondary maths is not about creating that pressure or rushing ahead. It's about ensuring that your teen has a secure foundation and growing confidence and the ability to approach challenges with resilience and independence. It's again this idea of encouraging gentle consistency and regular review, real life applications. So if you're looking at your curriculum and thinking, how can I position them? You might not be quite ready for iGCSE, you might recognize that, but how could I position them to be that? What do we need to look for in the maths curriculum to get ready for that? This idea of consistency, regular review, real life application problems, having those word problems. I think every child, regardless if they're primary to like 14, 15, they tend to not like the word problems. But the word problems are where they are having to use mathematical reasoning to work something out. So having a curriculum that has lots of those kind of word problems built in for the that's appropriate for that stage gives you a really good understanding. Are they able to think logically and mathematically? It's not just having a sum put down, it's being able to extract that data, understand the concept and the question and the context, and apply the knowledge. Um, Also recognize that many students develop this confidence as they get older. So you may not have a 13-year-old and you think they're not ready. They're just not ready. And it doesn't mean that they're poor at maths. They're mentally not developed to that level just yet. If you wait a year more of maturity and growth will do them the world of good. It's important to understand that the iGCSE maths exams, just like all iGCSE exams, are designed for 16-year-olds to sit. So taking that idea and back engineering it to your child's present age will help you. But that also says that if a child is just not quite ready yet, if they are 14, they might be better served waiting till they're 15 to start studying the iGCSE stuff. And as home educators, we can do that. For a struggling maths learner, it's often the best practice to put the maths exam as the last exam and not pressurizing you need to sit this at 16 because this is what you do, this is the age what you sit the exam, being flexible with that child. And the converse of that is true as well. You could have a child who's amazing at maths and they can do the maths, but it might not be the best thing to have them sit the exam at 14 or 15. They might be best waiting and just giving them a little bit more maturity because a lot of content and the exam itself is really quite long and challenging. Okay, let me just move this out of the way. So for secondary maths, Arise, we have different options. We have our full KS3 years 1 to 3, and we have iGCSE maths 1 and 2. We also have functional skills maths available this year and Nat 5 maths applications. For children who are our teens who are really interested in maths or for business, we have also iGCSE accounting. And beyond iGCSE, this year we have A-level maths starting at the AS level. So you can click on the Q or take a photo of the QR code for all our maths courses. Sometimes it's also appropriate to use private tuition for for teens, for even younger teens who are really struggling with their maths. The basic course is sometimes not enough. Just like in school, how you'll have kids in the classroom who they're sitting in the same classroom with the same teacher, the same material, and you'll have kids who just get it and they're flying off with straight A's, and then there'll be other kids there who are really struggling with it and they need extra tuition outside the classroom. The same is true for our home ed kids. You can be doing the program, you can be doing all these things right, but they just need that little bit extra one-to-one help with a private tutor. So we also have private tuition there as well with that QR code. And we're going to
Thank
hand back over to Shannon for
All
English. That was
right.
a lot of information.
That was a lot of math information. I do want to say, I forget if I said it at the very beginning. If you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat for those that are watching live. If otherwise you have questions, you're always welcome to email us or find us on social media and ask a question. You can email us at arisehomeeducation.com. And that email, you'll see it again toward the end of the slide deck if you need to grab it. So let's talk about English now, English language specifically. And so again, KS3, S1, year 7 for the different areas and regions of the UK. If you were thinking in American terms, that would be seventh grade would be the beginning part of that. So essentially, we're talking again about those kids that are age 11 or 12 at the beginning of this. And remember, just like with maths, the goal is not perfection, but to gain confidence and readiness in these core skills that we have that we can build on through the secondary level up through 16 and beyond. So understanding if your kids are ready is are they able to work with increasing independence in grammar, in writing, in reading comprehension, and in written expression. And so we'll take a look at a little bit of those, but it's really I will say at this stage, at this 12-year-old, parents, you are not done being near them and checking in with them that they're moving in the right direction in this independence, but because they still need someone to come alongside between lessons, especially with like at Arise, we teach once a week and we set homework, but on those days that we're not in our live lessons together, they still need somebody to come alongside and just maybe spot check or just to ask them what how things are going, what are they learning, can they explain it to you, and those kind of things. So just like before, it's all in the checklist, so we can go ahead and move on forward to the other pieces that we're going to look at specifically for English language. So the first is the grammar skills. So you want to, can your child or your children follow written instructions independently? Can they look at a worksheet and if it has three instructions at the top of the sheet of what they're meant to do with the whole sheet, they can do all three instructions and complete the worksheet and follow those independently. Are they able to identify just the basic parts of speech? Nouns, verbs, pronouns. Do they know their prepositions? That one is a key one when you start um, recognizing how, and we'll talk more about structure in a few minutes, but structure and prepositions and adjectives, all these basic parts of speech become really important in being able to form really great sentences. And so that's just part of it. It helps the understanding the individual pieces helps them organize their thoughts more effectively, believe it or not, because they'll understand how to put it together in an increasingly eloquent way. And so again, correct punctuation and capitalization. Can they find errors and fix them? Do they know how to write without making those errors in the first place? And then rewriting sentences accurately, that's another big piece of it. Can they take something and find the errors and then switch it and make it correct because they know the rules. And then we're not again looking for that perfection, but can they recognize it for the most part? Go ahead, Emma. It's not about do they get every part of speech correct, but in general, can they recognize them? So with writing skills, there's two different things, especially here at Arise, that we look at based on the curriculum that we use in our KS3 classes. And that is essentially structure. Do they know how to structure their writing? Can they write an opening sentence and a concluding sentence and have a paragraph in the middle, several sentences in the middle that support and connect those two pieces together? And then are they able to are they developing their use of strong verbs and descriptive vocabulary? Can they use and appropriately put adjectives and adverbs in their sentences in like an editing fashion, not necessarily right out of the gate with their first draft or anything like that, but can they go back and do that? Do they know how to use clauses? Are they familiar with the word? And if they're not, that this is one of those pieces where if they're not, that's okay. They'll learn in these classes. But if they know, if you find an odd sentence where they have thrown in a because, a who, or a which, then they're definitely on the right track. But those are pieces that lend themselves to style and broader organized expression of themselves in a logical format, and how to use prepositional phrases just to expand the clarity of their sentence. And all these things matter because it helps your kids learn how to communicate their ideas clearly, organize their information logically, and to be able to express themselves. And these are anchor pieces for all subjects, whether it's history or science, any writing, anything that involves any type of writing, from lab reports to presentations to essays to creative writing. So it becomes important for all of them, and they're going to have those with increasing maturity. All right. So then the other piece that comes along with the writing skills is the grammar and the mechanics. So um, you want to check that their writing shows complete sentences, correct verb tense, that they're not switching verb tenses within a paragraph or within a sentence, or they're not changing subjects improperly and that type of thing. And does the work make sense? And do they have the appropriate punctuation and capitalization? Can they correct comma usage or use it correct in the first place, or find the mistake again and correct it? And again, these are just those foundational writing skills that we want to have that consistent repetition that builds confidence in their abilities. Because once they get to the GCSE level, they're going to be building on these basic pieces. All right, so just a few things, and this is really important, that just to remind us, what are some of the things that might show that your teen or your student needs a little bit more preparation. If they're struggling to write independently and to create those complete organized paragraphs, then that might be a sign. For my low level class, the entry requirement, can they write a paragraph? That's the key. Um, and it can be a simple paragraph, but it needs to follow that structure that we just looked at a little bit. So frequently, if they are frequently using incorrect punctuation or capitalization, then you're going to want to swing back around and tighten that up, remind them of the rules of those things, and help them practice those with workbooks. Good reading, all of this is anchored as well in good reading, either independently or together as a family and that kind of thing. Do they have difficulty identifying basic grammar concepts? So can they find the noun in the sentence or the pronoun in the sentence and know what its relationship is to another word? That's can be really key. If it becomes overwhelming with some of the longer writing, with a longer writing task, then that's something definitely there's muscle to be built there with expecting or learning how to write more or expand ideas more, to be able to progress and do longer assignments. Because by the time they get to 14 to 16 for those iGCSE years, they're needing to be able to write 500 to 1500 words for assignments and for research papers and that type of thing. If they're like totally avoiding writing whenever possible, there's two things to look at there. First, you need to identify, are they avoiding handwriting? Because that's a different issue than actually the idea of thoughts on paper, whether that's typing or handwritten. If it's handwriting, there might be some other issues going on, like dysgraphia or something like that, versus just organizing ideas. Because ideas can be organized and typed out, they can be talked out. There's lots of different ways to get your ideas out there. So understand what's causing the avoidance will really help unlock how to address that one. Again, if they're struggling to follow written instructions, like an example would be write a comparison. This would be a GCSE level, so let's not go that far. So let's say take these three pictures and write um, a paragraph about what's happening in each picture, and then draw a moral to the story you're telling. If they're not able to do all that for the three pictures and do it independently, then some more practice needs to come back around with that. If they're finding it difficult to organize their thoughts clearly on paper, that's different than writing. They might have lots of ideas, but once they get them out on paper, they're not quite sure how to put them together into a organized paragraph. Then working with them with that will definitely help them be ready for this KS3 level. And then if they need significant help to begin or complete a written work, if they don't know how to begin, if they don't know how to finish up, if it feels too overwhelming, all those kind of things, those are keys that there's still some work that needs to be done. And there might be some indicators that there's some other executive function things going on there that need to be addressed. And those are things that there's lots of resources out there for those. So again, the encouragement for the parents is that it's okay to take this as to have a season of taking a slower pace with this to make sure you get those anchors in with the structure, with the style, with the grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and that kind of thing, because you want to build that confidence. You want to find what works for them to help them prepare and lay a foundation that they can move nicely into the next level of learning and writing, and being able to express themselves in different ways on different topics. So yeah. All right. And again, just reminding us as parents that we approach the academic readiness prayerfully. It's not about comparison with others. Your child will progress at a steady rate, and it's our job to help guide them through that and help find if there's places where we need to support weaknesses a little bit stronger, or we need to expand their ideas and let them run with those broader ideas and more rigorous work where that's appropriate. I mean, it's about building those strong foundations so that when they get into the specific subjects that they love, they're able to express themselves with clarity, with organization, and with style, and really enjoy the process of it. So at Arise, what we have for secondary English language classes, we have KS3 level, English grammar and writing year 1 and year 2. With that, we're using an IEW, which is Institute for Excellence in Writing curriculum, and they're very particular about structure and style. And what we have found, both Emma and I have used it. We have graduated kids and put them into university using it, and all different types of vocational paths along the way. It's a world-renowned curriculum that is used in schools and as home educating resources. So with it, we have found that this has been the best anchoring piece for our students to be ready for the basics of GCSE, and stepping into that with confidence. The other classes there that we have are the GCSE English Language Year 1 and Year 2. And then we also have Writing with Integrity and Accuracy. So that's a course that is built around how to interrupt plagiarism and teach how to write creatively on your own without the use of AI, and learning how to do proper research and to write with integrity and that type of thing. And we also have other resources, both language and literature, in the that are offered. And so you can see the QR code there that takes you to the English courses. And you might also find that there are times, just like with maths, like Emma was mentioning, that the private tuition might be a good place to land for some sessions if you're finding that your student is really struggling and you wanting a different approach to to unlock some of those skills for them and help them out. So those are what we have there. All right. What do we, I forget what's next after this. All right, so just a little bit more guidance and encouragement. If you're coming in late, you can grab the QR code, or I think I can drop the document again if you're not able to see it there in the chat. There is the readiness checklist for those that have just joined us lately. And just also, we're here to help you. We're here to um, give you a little bit more academic guidance in and coaching if that's necessary. So we offer free 20-minute academic coaching sessions. So just email us with the email address you see there on the page, and we will be able to send you a link to get something organized for a day and time for that. But the key is really to help you identify the strengths, the gaps, and the next steps, and to support with wisdom, intention, and encouragement as we prepare our kids and ourselves for the secondary years, those early secondary years, and then those kind of middle secondary years before they hit or head into really focused higher study at A level or college or something like that. All right. So just to wind it up here before we get to the Q&A, we like to journey together with people. We talk a lot about the partnership at Arise between the students, the parents, and the tutors. And we also, you may have heard things talked about like the Goldilocks method or the easy+1 when you're trying to look at placement and readiness, and where you should head as you progress through your education years. At Arise, we focus on building strong foundations for academic excellence with Christ-centered guidance. And it's based on scripture with Proverbs 24. There, by wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. And so that's what we're talking about. This first piece here, this readiness, is a house being built. And so with wisdom and understanding. And then once we build those structures in the early secondary years and in the primary years as well, of course, then we're ready when we get into the later secondary years to be able to fill those with all the precious, pleasant riches. And that's where they're expanding their knowledge at light speed in so many areas. But because they have those pillars there already well seated for a good, strong foundation in maths and English and in character, of course. So.